Never ever. So let's switch gears here. We're going to get out of sports and it's time to talk about what's cooking. Risotto.
Here we go. I'm going to be hungry.
What were we doing? This one looked real good.
Yeah,
I have
risotto.
to admit.
I love risotto, and I say it in the start of the video that risotto is one of those things that you'll make it better at home than at a restaurant, because to make it right, you need to stand over that pot for 20 to 30 minutes, stirring constantly. And in a restaurant, they just can't do that.
Yeah.
So in a restaurant, they'll usually make the risotto and then cool it down and maybe warm it up somehow. It's still good, but never as good as at home, in my opinion. And it's also one of those things that I've made it, I've probably made it 100 times, and sometimes it still comes out a little better than other times in terms of how creamy. And so this one came out pretty good. It wasn't the best I've ever made, but it was certainly really, really good. And then I've been experimenting with my Rectech grill too. So I smoked the shrimp again that goes with the risotto on my smoker grill. And I tried a different technique. I fired it up as hot as it could go, and then turned it off, put the shrimp on, and closed the lid, because the fan, when you turn the Rectech off, the fan continues to blow for like 10 minutes. So it just blew a heavier amount of smoke into the chamber, and I think I overcooked the shrimp a little bit. But it was still really good. They like snapped when you bit into them and had a really, really strong smoky flavor, which I wanted it to be that way because the risotto is just smooth and creamy. But see for yourself.
Oh man, it already looks delicious.
Are we clear?
So yeah, we got the big shrimp, and peel those. I take the tail off the shrimp too, because some people like to leave it on, but you're not eating it. I don't want little tails of shrimp in my bowl when I'm done. You don't need them. It doesn't make it taste better. So anyways, I do this some type of quick marinade with shrimp whenever I cook it. And this is one of my favorites. Just a ton of basil, ton of garlic, and some parsley, and some lime juice. A lot of lime juice. And then I just put that in the refrigerator for probably half an hour is all. You can go longer, but half an hour I usually do it. And yeah, I love cooking shrimp this way. Sometimes I do a marinade with like some ancho. If you have dried ancho peppers, instead of the basil, I'll go with ancho peppers.
Does this make them a little bit sweeter by any chance with all that lime?
Yeah, the lime juice gives it a little acid bite. The basil makes it a little sweeter. And it is amazing what a difference this makes. Just 30 minutes sitting like this before they get cooked, especially on the grill where you're not cooking them in like oil or butter. So now we need to create a broth that's going to make the risotto. So I just throw some garlic cloves in, and a hefty amount of veggie broth. You can use chicken broth, of course. You can use water if you want, but it needs to be warmed up to make the risotto. And now this is also just prepping a little bit of a side for the risotto. You can make risotto a lot of ways, like with mushroom in it or lobster or whatever. Tonight I was just making the risotto clean and putting the veggies on the side. So this broccoletti and mushroom mix is just going to go on the side. So we heat up the skillet, throw a little butter in there. Actually, it's not a little butter, that's a whole stick. And then we start to cook the onions. And a lot of times when I make a little saute like this, I throw in some Tabasco with the onions. It doesn't make it more spicy. It just is a little subtle kick to it that you can't put your finger on when it's done. You can see like the color of the onions is a little bit off because of the Tabasco. And so now I throw in a hefty amount of crushed red pepper. Again, that risotto is going to be smooth and creamy. And so we counter that with a little bit of flavor on the side that I'm making here and the smokiness of the shrimp. So we get cooking here.
I love mushrooms in risotto so much. I feel like they just go so well.
Me too. And I love mushrooms in general. I threw some cinnamon and sugar in there too, as I like to do. And then crack open a bottle of Hosmer,
A classic.
white wine,
Delicious.
and kind of not necessarily deglazing because there wasn't anything to deglaze on the pan, but just kind of building a base for when we eventually put the broccoli in. So now I'm just going to chop up some more parsley and basil and set it aside for garnish at the very end. And I'm doing all this before I start the risotto because once you start the risotto, you aren't stopping for anything. So I head out back to the old Rectech grill.
It's getting a lot of use already.
I know, I
Just
love
think of
it.
in the summer.
So see, I had it like really cranked up high, and so once I get these on and close the lid, I turn it right off, and it will just be pure smoke from that point on. But it doesn't take long to cook those shrimp. So now we get ready for the risotto. First thing, arborio rice. You need arborio rice. Throw it in there under high heat and just toast it for a second before you get going, about 30 seconds. And then I start with a little bit more of that white wine just to wet the whistle there.
That's when I panic, is that I think I'm going to burn it like way too fast when you don't have anything in there right away.
Yeah. So now this is a process you will repeat over and over again. A little ladle of the stock and then stir until there's no more liquid in the pan, and then add some more stock. But you have to keep stirring. And I use a method where I basically scrape around the edge and then kind of swirl everything around, then scrape around the edge again, just to make sure that you're not leaving any of those grains of rice on the outside. And you really want even amount of cooking. So even once you do put another ladle in, which I'm going to do in a second here, I think I can tell just by how dry it's getting that there should be another ladle coming any second now. There it is. And so once it goes in, I immediately kind of swirl it around so it covers all the rice evenly and just continue to stir. And I'm telling you, you're stirring for.
It's kind of hypnotizing.
Yeah, I don't
watching
mind
it.
it.
It could be
Definitely a process.
soothing for some people. Just
It
the
is.
stirring.
Sometimes your arm starts to hurt.
Oh yeah, that's true. Switch it up.
Yeah, and so now there you go, just a little bit more, and it's got to be hot because if it's cold broth, it's going to stop the cooking process. So you kind of want to keep them constant heat and keep stirring, and you keep going and going like this, stir and repeat. And it really starts to come together and create its own cream sauce. To me, it's like you made a creamy dish that people would think, oh, there's got to be some milk or cream in there,
Right.
But there isn't. That's all just the natural starch of the rice slowly breaking down. And that's why you can't just go with a ton of broth at once, because it just washes all that creaminess away, kind of. So now as we're getting a little closer, I step away from the risotto for just a second to get this broccoletti in with the mushrooms and let that cook down. And then I had my wife continue to stir as I went outside to check and see all that smoke that came out of there. So these things are smoked, and I did overcook them a little bit, but it was fine actually. They were just really like they crunchy, and you could snap one in two and it would just snap. But
it clashes well, I would think. With
yeah,
the
extra
risotto.
smoky.
How long were they in the smoker?
Oh, probably about 20 minutes. 20,
Nice.
25 minutes. And so now I'm back at it here again.
Ooh, that's my favorite part. Taste the rice. Make sure it's done. I am a taste tester in
Yeah,
the
you
kitchen.
have to too. You want to make sure when you taste it that it doesn't crunch, but it's not mushy. A good risotto would not be mushy. And so when it gets to that point, I add about a half a stick of butter and mix that in at the very end. You don't really need to do that either, but I think it's a nice little touch. And then I squeeze a little lemon juice. You can also use vinegar, but I've also found, and I've read this tip online, a little bit of acid in your risotto makes a big difference, and it does. It just kind of activates the flavor a little bit. And
I would eat that whole pan.
I
problem.
ate a lot. So here it comes out, and you can see it did come out really good. Sometimes I like it just a little creamier where it kind of falls, down and spreads itself across the plate. This was kind of a little thicker, but it was fine. And now we're plating it. There goes our vegetable mix, mushrooms and broccoli, and then the shrimp on top on the other side. And then, of course, we're going to squeeze another lemon over the top of the shrimp and over everything, really. Why not? And then...
Beautiful. I could eat that
next?
every day.
Oh,
The
there's
garnish, duh.
the herbs that we set aside.
How could you forget?
And then, of course,
Oh, of
almost
course.
everything I cook has a little tiger sauce on it.
I'm
especially-
definitely noticing some patterns in your cooking.
Man, this was good. It was a little olive oil. Why not? Just to do the final touch. A little crushed ground pepper. And that's it. There you go. Risotto with smoked shrimp, broccoletti, and mushrooms.
I'm all about rice bowls, but I think I should just switch for a week to just risotto bowls.
Now,
Like-
here's the question.
Oh, yes.
With
Let's hear
that.
it.
How is that the next day?
I was
It's
thinking
fine.
that.
It's not as good as right out of the pan. Risotto is best right away, but it's fine. And you can then, if you were going to have it the next day, instead of just warming it up in the microwave, you could throw it back in the skillet and add another quarter stick of butter and warm it up under low heat and mix the butter in. And it would, but it's fine the next day. Yeah. Yeah. And I did have some leftover shrimp too, which was good the next day too. But that was last Friday night, I think. And that was a pretty healthy portion.
Right.
It
Yeah.
was pretty full after that. But yeah, risotto is great, man. Try it. Try it like that. Don't skimp on it. Give yourself time. Make sure you're not distracted with other things once you start cooking it, because you got to keep stirring and stirring and stirring. And if you do, and you have that warm broth, then it'll come out just as good as it did for me. Maybe
Those were
better.
some good tips.
I
And
said before we came on that I might try it this weekend. It looks
you did?
really
Yeah, he
good.
did.
Do it.
I might try it this weekend.
he
I
was
think-
like, "Have you
hard to say.
seen it?" I was like, I had it pop up on my For You page, but I try not to watch it because I want to be like,
So
see
a
it
couple
right
things
away.
if you're trying risotto for the first time. Number
Tips
one,
from Jim.
arborio rice. You got to have arborio
Yep.
rice. Number two, don't use too much rice. Like it will.
Rice
What you start
expands.
with will expand. So sometimes when you start, you think, "Oh man, there's probably not enough rice in there," but there usually is. And then, other than that, you got to trust yourself. So as you add the broth, don't add a lot, just enough to keep everything a little wet, and then stir until it's not wet anymore. It's kind of a judgment call, and then a little bit more and a little bit more, and then taste it about 20 minutes in. And another
I was
tip
gonna say
is
20
make sure you
times.
have enough broth, because I've made that before where I ran out of the warm broth before it was ready, and then you're in a little bit of a pinch. So
Right.
that's why you see I had 2 boxes of the veggie broth that I used. I didn't go through it all, but I probably went through a little more than 1 box.
Oh,
Do
wow.
you keep the broth simmering
That's-
while you're actually
Yeah, so
Adding.
keep it low,
Keep it going.
not, I would say just below boiling point. You don't want it boiling. So just below boiling. And like I said, that's important because you don't want the temperature of the rice in that pan to drop when you put the broth in.
The
So
tips and tricks. And if you want to follow your exact method, you can go to our TikTok of FL1 Food and you can save it. You can follow it, and you can do that this weekend, Josh. Maybe that'll help.
probably going to happen.
So what do you think you'll do with the risotto? What do you have with it?
That is a good question. It'll probably be pretty similar to what you did. I would
do that.
Yeah, broccoli is an easy veggie in my house that wife and I can agree on without any.
Yep.
I won't be
Right.
able to do mushrooms. She is not a mushroom person,
Oh,
so
man.
mushrooms will be out. But we'll find another way to add a little heavy protein to that.
So you can if you want you can do it a lot of different ways, but this is how I would do it if you wanted to combine like the broccoli with the risotto at the end. First of all, I would chop it pretty finely. I wouldn't want any giant chunks if I was going to like mix it in with the risotto, but start it separately. And then after the risotto is in at the very end, stir it into the risotto right in the risotto pan. And so that you could have done that with a mushroom stew or lobster risotto. You
Ooh,
see that
yeah.
a lot. Just save it and cook it separate, mix it in right at the very end.
I will say when I see the finished product, I really badly want to incorporate chicken somehow. I'm just not exactly sure how it would be incorporated.
Just
because
put it on the side.
Absolutely,
Love
chicken.
chicken.
I eat chicken all the time.
A little
Yeah.
shredded chicken might work good with risotto.
I would just have that as my side and put your
yeah.
broccoli in with the risotto, and then there's your
Yeah.
chicken.
There's
but-
something about risotto that I kind of like it on its own, because when you do it right, it's almost like a custardy pudding type of thing. And so I like the option to be able to taste as I'm eating, to have some of that risotto with nothing else. And then if I want, I have the vegetables on the side and the shrimp, so you can have a lot of different bites. You know, you can mix them when you want, or you can just have the straight risotto.